This is our sixth lecture in Intro to Mobile. We're going to look at usability guidelines and best practices, an area that I frankly enjoy. Also will say, like many other people, I could stand to learn more about it as it's always evolving. We'll find that usability has improved significantly in the last several years. And the technology has also changed. So, what made good usability rules maybe 13 years ago might not make good usability rules now. The reason why I say 13 years, kind of an odd number, when I was in graduate school, I did a final project on usability design, and I found I learned quite a bit. So, I'm going to reference a few different things. I want to pull this up so we can look at it now. First of all, I'm referencing a book. Hang on, I'll need to move this screen. I'm referencing a book that I used in graduate school called GUI Bloopers. And I have that book here on Amazon. I'm surprised you can get it very inexpensively. This is, if you like user interface design, this is definitely a good book to read. I based my project on this and still refer to it frequently. You find that GUI bloopers, when you understand a little bit about usability, you start paying more attention. You start noticing people who do it wrong, and it starts to bother you. So it's one kind of interesting thing about usability. It's like grammar. When you know what is wrong, it bothers you when other people don't do it right. So we're going to reference the GUI bloopers book a little bit. We're also going to reference two other websites and compare and contrast them. One is the Apple User Experience Guidelines and the Human Interface Guidelines for iOS. Again, not surprisingly, very well written. And the other one, also very well written, are the Android Development Guidelines. And it shouldn't be a big surprise. We're going to see a lot of common themes between the two sites. So here we go. Here's the Android site. We're going to see a lot of common themes between these two sites, things that they both recommend. So I'm going to start by looking at GUI bloopers. Then we're going to look at some examples of things that are done well, not done well. And next, we're going to look at iPhone's or iOS's standards, what they recommend. And then finally, we'll wrap it up by comparing them to Android standards. And again, we'll find that they're very similar. So, allow me to resize this just 1 second, please. And there we go. Okay. Okay. GUI bloopers. This is from the textbook that I showed you. What's interesting, and I'll agree this is very true, most software companies don't employ true UI experts. It is an art. It is a real art, but surprisingly, it just doesn't tend to be something that software companies handle unless they're very big. There's a lot of good reason to have a UI expert as well. Most programmers will rationalize UI things that they do wrong. They will tend to say, oh, well, I had to do it this way because. So be careful with that. Many times we should be doing things right. But here's the challenge. This is one of the very first quotes of that GUI bloopers book. And it's one that's really stuck with me. And the quote is, most programmers believe they are UI experts. Okay, but they're not. It's very interesting. And of course, I read the book and I thought, well, you know what? I'm pretty good at UI and I'm a programmer. And so I think that I am a UI expert. As I read that book, as I went through the book, what I did is I audited a piece of software that I wrote about 13 years ago. And I thought it would probably really pass the UI standards and do a very good job of it. As I read the book, I realized I made several very blatant UI errors. And sure enough, I'm not a UI expert. That's what I figured out from that. So going back to the very first bullet point, we'll find that it's a mistake to neglect user interface. Many times when people see a poorly written user interface, that reflects on the quality of the application. Okay, so poorly written user interface makes us think that the software itself is very bad. And again, I can think of many occasions of this in my life. Software that I've used, Oftentimes, software I've implemented at a company that had a painful user interface, and because of that, it quickly lost popularity with developers. Developers thought, wow, this is a really stinky piece of software. So UI reflects very closely on quality. Okay? Consider the UI early on. Don't wait until you're ready to publish. For my app, I basically wrote it and tested it for a total of about a year. And I kind of became aware of some UI glitches. As I went closer to going live, it really dawned on me that, there's some things that I really needed to fix that I almost forgot to fix because they were easy to overlook because, frankly, I was just used to doing it. Things like screen orientation changes. I didn't handle those properly originally. That means, in other words, you take your phone, you're looking at it landscape mode, you turn it to portrait, or vice versa. Okay, so you twist your phone. I wasn't handling that well, but I was used to that, and I just accommodated for it by never turning my phone. But as soon as I went live, I realized, gosh, that's something that I'm definitely going to have to take care of. I'm going to have to make sure that I handle orientation changes properly. Okay, so consider UI early on. Okay. Now, the GUI bloopers book defines 8 principles. I have some examples here that we'll talk about. First of all, focus on the users and their tasks, not the technology. This goes back to what I was saying in the last recorded lecture, the 5th recorded lecture, which is if someone comes to you and says, "I have an idea for an app," interrogate them a little bit. Does it really need to be an app? Okay, does it really need to be an app? Or is it just they have an idea for a website, but app sounds really cool and they want to make an app out of it? That happens a lot. And I see even other, what I'll call competitors, people who also do plant mobile apps. And really, they're not using anything that is inherent to the phone. They're not using the GPS. They're not using the camera. It's basically just a website they've turned into an app, but because they've done that, now they have a lot more maintenance issues to think about because you have to build it for iPhone, you have to build it for Android, Windows, BlackBerry, so on and so forth. So number one, let's decide what problem we're trying to solve. Then let's pick the technology. Let's not say we want to do an app for app's sake. Let's not do an app just because it sounds cool. Okay? Now, consider function first, presentation later. That seems to be the opposite of what we said on the last slide, which is think of the UI first. But indeed, it's not. You should think of the UI definitely. What you don't want to do is start designing screens down to the button level and then decide what they're going to do. Because what you'll do, you might lose focus. You might have a screen that has way too many buttons on it, way too many text fields, things that are never used. And I've seen this. I know on if you use Oracle's VirtualBox, there is an option to delete a VirtualBox file from disk, and when you click on it, it says, "Sorry, this functionality has not been implemented yet. It will be implemented in the next release." Okay, if that's the case, the button really shouldn't exist. And you can think of websites a lot where you click on something and it says coming soon. You see that somewhat frequently, or it'll have under construction or something like that. That's a bad idea. Don't have a dead link. Okay, don't have functionality that doesn't exist but provide a path to it, because that's needless clutter. Things like under construction, coming soon, those if it's really under construction, it shouldn't exist. So be careful on that one. Okay. Next, conform to the user's view of the task. And what that means is, what does the user want to know? So I have, as much as I like this class, I am looking forward to the end of the semester because that's when I go on vacation. I'm taking a cruise and I'm in room L102 of the Emerald Princess. But to me, what does that really mean? Well, I don't know. Actually, I do know because I knew when I booked this room that L means Lido deck and 102, I know roughly where that is. But boy, it'd be nice if I could maybe see things that are around my room. But unfortunately, I can't. If I click on this room number, nothing happens. If I click on Emerald Princess, nothing happens either. So what I actually have to do is I need to go up here and I need to find the Emerald Princess somehow. I need to find out where that is. Well, let's see, cruise ships. Then I can find the Emerald Princess. Then if I can look at they do have a little selection here, so I can do L102. I can finally find my room if I do that. It would be really nice if that L102 linked directly to this room, and even here it doesn't really have it on a map, so it would be really nice. Here we go. If I could click on that and see exactly where my room's going to be instead of taking those extra steps. So now I will say, when I booked the room, it did give me a map of the boat. I was able to click on it. That was a much nicer user experience. I'll show you one that was done pretty well, on the other hand. So somehow I have to get to the cruise ship, don't I? Okay, so here we go. Okay, I can scroll down and I can click on view seats. Okay, and when I go here, it shows me, give it a second to come up. We'll see it does a little wait screen. It's going to take a second to render this, so it's smart for it to do a wait screen like that because it gives a better user experience. Now I can see on this aircraft where my wife and I are sitting. Okay, if I want to change my seat, I can just click on another seat. It makes it very straightforward. So this is what I as a user wish to see. The only thing that's a little bit weird about this is that it acts like I can click first class, then it says I can't. It'd be nice if maybe it did a gray over there or something like that, but oh well. So this is what I want to see as a user. My seat in relation to the lavatory, in relation to the exit row, so on and so forth. That's the kind of that's what I would expect to see as a user. That's something that's convenient to me. One thing that is a bit interesting here is that we see it shows the features of this aircraft. And it kind of conflicts itself here because it shows a shared screen, in other words, one of those TVs that drops down from the ceiling, and then also a personal TV. That rarely happens in aircraft. Rarely will you have both. Typically, you'll have one or the other. I'm trying very hard to figure out which this aircraft has because the last time I flew this flight, it had the shared TV. I'm hoping that they have the personal DVR TVs. They're much nicer. When I click on aircraft details, it tells me it has the personal video, but I don't know. Maybe that's just first class. I'm not sure. So that's something that could be a bit nicer. This is really nice. Oh, man. This used to be very hard to find, but certain international aircraft now will have AC power. This tells you exactly what seats it's in, which makes life very nice. So anyway, hopefully that's the case, because there again, the last time I flew this flight, it did not have personal AC power in coach, so we'll find out. Okay, more to come on that website later. More to come there later. Okay. Don't complicate the user's task. I have a good example for this as well. Remember I showed I wanted to see my stateroom, so I clicked and I saw I'm in L102 on Emerald Princess, but I had to make several clicks to actually see where that is on a ship. I have one that you have probably experienced recently as well. If you've registered for class, okay, here's an example of complicating the user's task. And of course, I'm not, opposed to, biting the hands that feeds me, as we say. See, here's our one-stop registration system. We see it has this kind of weird shaped image at the top. But now we see add a class, call number, credit hours, credit level, audit. Well, okay, all right. But you know what? To find that information, I have to go over to One Stop. Okay, so I'm going to go to One Stop. Okay, and here we go. Here's One Stop, and of course you've all seen this. And I'm going to choose this program, Get Classes, and here it's going to have course title, call number. So there's our call number, credits. Okay, it'd be really nice if I could click on this and it would just allow me to sign up. I mean, I can see other things. I can see how many seats are available, things like that. I can see the course number. But what I actually have to do is I have to either open this in a different window or write this information down. And then I have to go over here and type in the call number. Now, most classes have a fixed number of credit hours. So it's odd that I would have to enter the number of credit hours again over here. Now, if maybe the class had a variable number of credit hours, maybe it could prompt me. But it's very strange that I would need to add both the call number and the credit hour, and then the credit level, graduate or undergraduate, for each course. It should know that based on the call number. Further, what does call number mean to me? 900-532? That's pretty much a useless number to me, and I have to actually go over and read the English like name. So there's an example of where the user interface is making the user do some extra steps that are a bit needless. Try to avoid that. Try to see where you can minimize that. One thing I mentioned in the Plant Places mobile app is that you can add bloom dates, and I'll see if I can get back to the bloom date screen. You can add bloom dates, and it will automatically enter, or it will automatically send the latitude and longitude where you entered those bloom dates for a plant. So you don't need to enter bloom dates and the location. You just need to enter the bloom dates. The location will figure it out automatically based on the GPS reading of that phone. Okay, so something to consider seriously is how to make the user's task easy. This is especially true on a mobile device because we have to remember where the user is using this device. Many times we have a limited keyboard. We want to minimize the amount of typing that's going to happen. The user might be multitasking. I mean, face it, how many times have you used your mobile device when you're in class or, admit it, at a red light? Hopefully only at a red light, something I'd never recommend, use it while driving. But people do tend to do these things. So we don't want to have a multiple step process where you see the call number, you have to write it down, and then you have to enter it into a different screen. Okay, promote learning. When the user sees something, when the user sees a button, the user should know how that will respond. Or let's try to reuse some components. I showed you advanced plan search earlier. If I do go to the enter bloom date screen, and again, this is on the emulator, which is a bit slow, so we'll need to give it some time to respond. We'll find the search screen is used on multiple places throughout this application, and it is the same search screen. So when you've learned it once, you've learned many different parts of the application because they're all using a common language. Okay, I'll let that load in the site. Now, let me ask some things. When you are on a website and you see something underlined, what does that usually mean? That usually means you're navigating somewhere. If you see a button, what does that usually mean? That usually means you're submitting data. So let's take a look again at One Stop. And we'll see that, okay, submit, that makes sense to be a button. But many of these other things are really navigational, like help. Okay, that's going to pull up a help screen over here. Okay, that's really navigational, probably would make more sense as a hyperlink. Okay, schedule of classes, that's going to pull up the one-stop search here. Again, that would probably make more sense as a link instead of a button. I have to say, if you look at this, this is an ASP page, which is Microsoft technology. One thing I don't really like about what they did is they let you use a button or a hyperlink interchangeably. So you can have a hyperlink submit data, you can have a button as navigation. Really, users tend to think of buttons as things that submit data. Users tend to think of hyperlinks as things that are taking us to another page without submitting data. Okay, and again, I promised we'd go back to the we'll go back a few times to the airline application. You'll see our options here. Save and exit is a button. Exit without saving changes is a hyperlink. So when you click a button, you tend to think, I am persisting some data. I am saving data. When you hyperlink, it tends to be, I'm leaving the screen without saving data. Traditionally, hyperlinks have been underlined. Okay? And so that's how we know what a hyperlink is. So these are things that we have learned over time. By reusing the same paradigms, we're promoting learning because users will see this and they know what they're expecting. They'll know a link is going to be something that a link is going to be something that's going to take us to another page without saving data. We'll take a look at a few more violations of some UI rules here. Okay, I go to this screen and we see advanced search, which is underlined. That's going to make me think that this is a hyperlink, but guess what? It's not. It's just text. It's kind of forbidden to use an underline in web technologies because you're making the user think it is a link when in this case you see it's actually not a link. Here's an old one. This one's so old I had to go to an old recording and find it. Let me see if I can pull up that recording. Okay, I showed you the seat selection app on Delta. This is what it looked like a year ago. Very similar. But one interesting thing, take a look at this. This is a big UI blooper that you occasionally see. And this is a recording from a class I recorded last year. You see I'm currently in seat 11D on this aircraft, and up here it says 11D in a text field. But the trick is, when I see text field, to me, that means I can change this text. So to a user, you think, okay, I can put another number in there. You can do that all you want, and it wouldn't actually change your seat. So that's a violation of learning because you're thinking, I see editable text, I want to change the text and then save it. That won't work. The only way to change your seat is to actually click on the seat down below. Okay, that's the only way to actually change your seat, not to change this text here. Okay, so interestingly, if you look at the newer version of the website, the one I actually just had showing, you'll see that that's no longer a text field, it's now a label. So a big UI rule, user interface rule is if the user cannot change text, it should not be an editable text field, something where the user can type data. Okay. If it's read-only, it should be a label like this. Okay, again, compare this. Here's the label with my seat. Okay, and if we go to what the app looked like last year, here's a text field, and again, this is a recording, so I can't actually change it. This is a text field where I can actually type whatever I want inside of it. So, promote learning means leverage what the user already knows about UI. Don't confuse the user. Don't confuse the user by using UI components in a different way. Okay? A couple more examples of UI design. Here's an interesting one. Back to this website. Okay, we see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick on Adams County. Click once to select it. It used to be click twice to remove it. Okay, I'm going to hit search. And on the results screen, it's going to say show new listings only and sort results by. When we see a checkbox, that tends to be something where we can select one or more, or none. Either none, or one, or more. When we see a radio button like this, it tends to be an either or. We can choose only one. We have to choose one, and only one. Checkbox, we can choose one or more. Here's a bit of a UI violation. I click on show new listings only, and when I do that, suddenly it disappears. Okay, see, that button disappears. It should offer the user an opportunity to unclick that button, but you see now that button has disappeared. So how do I go back and see all listings? Okay, so that's a big UI violation. Don't have widgets that disappear unless they should disappear. Okay, if you're giving the user an option, give the user an undo as well. Give the user an undo option as well. As it works, I click the back button, but and I can get back. But we shouldn't rely on that. If we're showing a checkbox, the act of checking it should not make the checkbox entirely disappear, or the act of checking it in this case should not make the checkbox disappear. That's confusing to the user. Okay, so there we go. Another thing that bothers me a little bit about this page, when I click back, we see that my search criteria is all gone. I have to re-enter. I have to go and choose whatever I was searching on before. Another UI item that I see. You see, if I type in here, let's say I type in Vine, what will typically happen, it's getting covered up now. What will typically happen is if I hit tab, it should go to whatever the next UI widget is in this flow. So if I type in Vine and I hit tab, I should go to search now. Now typically, if I'm on a button, if I hit a space bar or I hit enter, it should activate that button. So I just type Vine and I hit tab. The next logical thing in the flow is the search now button. But the trick is, if I hit enter, look at where I end up going. Or maybe it was space. Sorry, it's taken a moment. I think I might have just confused it. Let me try that one more time. Okay, I'm going to type in Vine, hit tab, and then space. Oh, space didn't do what I wanted. Vine, tab, and enter. Let's try that one more time. What will happen is it goes to the About Us page. So it's a little slow in rendering now. I might have to bring that back. But what will happen is it actually ends up tabbing us, if you take a look here, all the way up here to About Us. So you see that flow's a bit weird. It doesn't stay on this little box that we have here. It goes all the way up to About Us, and then when I hit enter, what's going to happen now is it's going to bring up the About Us page, when what I really wanted to see was the search now. I wanted that to fire. So, we want to make sure that we're leveraging what the user's expecting. And a normal flow would be that we can tab from input to input like so. So anyway, that's going to take a moment to render. I'll go ahead and move that off the screen. Okay, deliver information, not just data. Think about that one for a second. What is the difference between information and data? Let me go back to a Delta app again. Incidentally, on a trip I had about a year ago, or maybe it was more than a year ago, I was going over to England. And I had a 43-minute layover scheduled in Boston. So Cincinnati to Boston and then Boston to Heathrow. And when I was in Cincinnati, the flight to Boston was delayed by an hour and 10 minutes. So I went on the Android app for Delta, and I wanted to see what my options were. If they only showed me data, what they would show me are the flight schedules. I would have to take that data and decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to go up to a gate agent or the help center and ask to be on a different flight? What am I going to do? That would be data. Just showing me the flights that are scheduled would be showing me data. But I was really surprised. I logged on with my unique ID and everything. And instead of showing me flight schedules, what it showed me is, oh boy, sorry, we'll come back to that in just a second. Instead of showing me flight schedules, what came on as soon as I logged on is it said, your flight to Boston has been delayed and you might miss your connection. Do you wish to take any of these alternatives? And it gave me a list of 3 different ways that I could get to Heathrow from Cincinnati that very same day. What was really interesting is one of those ways was a very interesting route because it was on a flight to Detroit that was scheduled to leave 2 hours prior, but they had a weather delay in Detroit and the flight had not yet closed its door. And so the flight was about to take off in 15 minutes, and that was one of my options. Getting on that flight actually ended up getting me to Heathrow at the exact same time as if the Boston flight had not been delayed. As a matter of fact, I think it actually got me on a little bit earlier. So I was able to click and say, yes, that's the flight that I want. I think as a courtesy, I went to the gate agent and said, hey, I'm switching flights, but that wasn't even necessary. Took my luggage over to that Detroit flight and got straight to Heathrow. So that's the difference between data, which is requiring me to do some analysis, and information, which is presenting me with what I need to know to get where I want to go. Okay, giving me options that made it very, very easy for me to get where I want to go. Because of that, had it not been for that app, I probably would have been waiting in a line so long that Detroit option would not have been available. or they might not have even known that Detroit was an option. So that's the difference between information and data. Okay, side note before we go to the next bullet point. I told you about this is what came up on the Sibsy Klein website when I hit tab and then enter. It said server error and slash application. This is another big UI no-no. Big UI no-no here. First of all, what does this mean to me as a user? Absolutely nothing at all. Okay, nothing at all. It should be a more friendly error that says, sorry, the site's down for a moment. We have informed, the authorities or whatever it would be. This is giving the user way too much information because I don't know what I should do next. Number two, it's giving the user too much information. What if I were trying to hack the website? You see, I now know a lot about the website. I know it's a .NET website. I know a little bit about how it's configured. We should not give any user information. We should not reward them by trying to hack our website by giving them even more information about our website. So that's a big no-no. How do we avoid this? In web applications, we can define a custom error page that it will always go to if there's an error. That's what they probably should have done here. Let's go back and try one more time. I'm going to type on Vine. I'm going to hit tab, and then I'm going to hit enter. Let's see if the website still gives us this error or if it actually goes to About Us. It's taking some time, so I bet it's going to give us that error. I'll move that off screen. We'll come back to that. Okay, so give the user friendlier. Okay, design for responsiveness. This one's a big one too. Okay, this one's a big one too. And again, when I was the only user, by the way, here is the, sorry, quick side note. Here is the submit a Bloom date. You see I can tap on this and, well, with any luck here, sorry, a little bit slow. If I tap on that, it will give me a little, there we go. It will give me a little interface where I can enter bloom date information. If I choose select plant, it's going to take me to the plant selection screen. Okay, design for responsiveness means be responsive, of course, make a fast app, but also let the user know when the app is going to take a long time to do something. Okay, if we're doing a network connection, for accessing data over the internet, it's a good idea to put up a progress bar or something that indicates there might be a slight delay. That way the user, oh, sorry, there we go. There's our search screen. You see, we've seen this search screen before. It's the same search screen that we saw. It's the same search screen that we've seen under the advanced search. So we use that screen over and over again. But we want to give the user some kind of hourglass that shows that there is going to be a delay, that maybe we're doing a network intensive activity. So responsiveness is giving the user adequate information. Another thing, if I go to the GPS screen, and I'm navigating there off screen right now, one thing that I found that was very helpful, let's see, here we go. So we're back to the main screen on Plant Places Mobile. I'm going to hit choose GPS a plant, and of course that will take a few moments to render. But one thing I very quickly found out was important is that there were a lot of times I would be GPSing plants when I was not covered by my cellular network, when I was overseas. And what's very important, we also talked about how a user can go online and offline intermittently. We don't want to always assume that the user is going to be online. So what will happen is I will fill out all of this information and then choose Save to Phone. Okay, and what that will do is that will save the plant data to the phone locally. Now, when I'm ready to upload, I will choose the Upload button. What that will do is for every plant that I GPSed, it will make a call to the Plant Places website and it will send that plant data to the website. If I've GPSed, say, 10 or more plants and then I upload, that process can take a while. Okay. When I was the only user of this app, no problem, because I knew when I pressed the upload button, it would take a while before it would respond. But when I released this app to the public, that was one major change I had to make. When I choose upload now, what it will do is it will do what we call spawning a new thread. Okay, if you've ever heard of multitasking or multi-threading, that's what it does. When you choose the upload button, it spawns a new thread, which is a new process. That process in the background will will be uploading all of the plant data to Plant Place's website. Okay, so in the background, that's going to be uploading all of that plant data. Because it's running in the background, you can continue to use the app as you wish. Okay, because it's running in the background, you can continue to use the app. Okay, so multi-threading is a very important part of responsiveness. Take any thread that doesn't require intensive user interaction, move it to a different thread, a different process, and allow the user to continue to use the app. This is where you really kind of have to have a programming mindset with an app, because threading is a pretty deep programming concept. Doing it well, doing it right. That's a pretty deep programming concept. Now, if I wanted to GPS a plant, I would go here and choose select a plant. And what that will do is that will bring up the common advanced search screen that we keep seeing over and over again. That will search against the plant places database. And then it will, will allow us to search against any plant in the database, and then we can match up GPS points to that plant. Here's another interesting thing about designing for responsiveness, and let me see if I can get, I don't know if it's going to work here, but I'll give it a try. I typed in AME. Okay, let's see, A. And again, it's a bit slow because that's just the nature of the app itself. Okay, notice, do you see what happened there? I typed in AME and it brought up Amalankier as an autocomplete. Okay, it brought up Amalankier. So I can choose Amalankier, okay, and with any luck, it will fill that in with Amalankier. Okay, autocomplete, designed for responsiveness. So with autocomplete, what I can do is I can start typing and it will fill in the blanks. It will fill in the words that match what I've started to type. So AME filled in Amalankier. Okay, that's important because Amalankier is the Latin name for a tree called a serviceberry. And we said that a lot of times when we're using our mobile device, we're going to be limited because we might be multitasking ourselves. We might be in class, we might be at a stoplight. We want to type as little as possible. Okay, so autocomplete's very important for that. It's also very responsive. Now, what's interesting is that Amalankier is it auto-completed. Did you see it only showed the word Amalankier? How many words start with AME in the English language? You can probably think of quite a few. So we don't want to autocomplete with every word in the world. We just want to autocomplete with words that make sense in our domain. So I'm going to go ahead and click on search, which is off screen here, so you won't see it. But I'm clicking on search. What this will do is this will go out and fetch every plant called Amalankier, of which there are a few. Okay? What's interesting is when it gets results from plantplaces.com, it saves those locally onto this phone. So you see we have 5 different Amalankier here. It just saved that data locally onto this phone. But again, it did it in a separate thread, a separate process. So it's not slowing down the user's experience. Why save that information locally? Well, for 2 reasons. One of them is, once it saves that information locally, it uses that information on the autocomplete that we just saw. Okay. Once it saves that information onto the phone, that's the same information it uses to fill in this autocomplete. So we're only autocompleting with relevant information. The other reason it saves data locally is online-offline toggle. If we do go offline, there is a certain amount of data that we'll have on this phone itself, and we can continue working even if we don't have a cellular connection. And that's how, I'll go ahead and click this one, that's how if I am in a different country, I can still use this app, because as it reaches out and gets data, it's going to save that locally onto this phone. Okay? I'll go ahead and choose add a new specimen, and then this is going to take us back to the GPS screen. Okay, we'll let that go for a moment. Okay, so divine design for responsiveness. Okay, try it out on users and then fix it. Don't underestimate this one either. Okay, if we take a look at the Live Plant Places website, I'll show you a bit of history. And by the way, here we are um, back on the GPS screen. This for me was one of the most important. Okay, sorry. Sorry if there was a blip there, but I noticed my computer froze up, and I wanted to pause and give the screen recording software time to catch up. Okay, this is the GPS screen. This for me is one of the most important because it's what I use a lot. I'm open to design ideas if you have design ideas on this one. Notice how the buttons are kind of in funny places. Part of that is just so you wouldn't mistap a button. So pause GPS is the only thing over here. Select plant where you do that plant search is over here. These two fields are optional. Save to phone is most important. And I wanted to make a distinction between saving to the phone and actually uploading to the website. Show saved shows a list of anything that you've already saved, and then take photo allows you to associate a photo with this specimen. So I really struggled with this page. This is about as happy as I got with it before I released it, but trust me, this screen itself is one that probably would have been good for me to mock up ahead of time. And this is one of those where think of the function then the screen. I really put a lot on this screen and kind of changed it a bit before I released it. So that one took some work. Okay. Anyway, back to I wanted to show you iterations of the full website. Here's what the very first, let's see, help how to use. This is what the very first home page looked like. It's loading now. Okay, there we go. How to use this site. It threw a lot of information at the user, has a lot of links on the side and the top. Kind of served as a barrier to entry because you'd come to this page and you'd have to do a lot of reading, then you'd eventually give up. Okay, didn't make a lot of sense. Okay, next what we would usually do is say search for plants, and then we'd come to this screen. This screen has all kinds of search information: genus, species, cultivar, common name, category, minimum size, maximum size, and then some checkboxes down below. To me, this screen makes perfect sense. Okay, to me the screen makes perfect sense. But let's go back to our rule number 8. Try it out on users, then fix it. I told my wife to go to Plant Places and search for redbud. She came to this screen and said, "This screen is way too confusing. Don't understand it." Well, she's right. To an average user, the screen is way too confusing. Doesn't make any sense at all. So the newest version looks like this. We have, a few important things I want to stress, like the mobile app. But then take a look at this. Search plants by name. Doesn't matter if it's genus, species, cultivar, or common. Whatever you put here will search all 4 of those fields. Okay, you see here? Genus, species, cultivar, common. Or over here, you just have one blank, and it will search all 4. What's nice is you can put in any name. So if I type in redbud, what you'll see is it will do an autocomplete. See that? I type in redbud and it auto-completes from the Plant Places database. Redbud, the genus is Cercis, so I can type Cercis, and again, we'll see the same results. I can type in Canadensis, which is the species, and we'll see the same results, or similar results, or other things with that same Canadensis name. I can type in Cercis, Canadensis. I can type in 2 names, and again, see the same results. So it's adaptable to the user. Whatever the user wishes to enter, we're going to see these results. And then what we can do is simply click on any of them and then hit search. That's a much more user-friendly way to do search. Much more user-friendly way to do search. I put 2 more things on here just because I wanted to highlight them, because it's different from what other competing websites offer. Search by bloom date, you can either do month and day, or you can just do a calendar view. So don't know if we have a whole lot in that is in bloom right now, but let's go ahead and take a look. So let's say July 7th, the date I'm recording this up. Nothing in bloom now. Probably we need to add some more data then. If I were to change it to say April 7th though, oh, I'm sorry, you know why? Because I left that search up there. Let me try that again, July 7th, and search. Let's see if we get any results. I was going to say we should get something, yeah. So things that are in bloom right now. That's way out of bloom, actually. We need to take that one down. Okay, lots of neat things in bloom right now. Okay, there we go. Very nice. And then also search by color. Here's one where I left in the red, green, blue values as an educational tool so that we could see what red, green, and blue looks like. What I'd really like to do is give all of these colors names so that, because to a user, red, green, blue, that's speaking my language as a programmer. That's not speaking the user's language. I would rather give these all names like mauve, burnt sienna, fuchsia, all that instead of red, green, blue. But again, I partially left that in just for UC so that we could use that as a learning experience. So those are the top 8 GUI bloopers as defined by, or the top 8 principles of GUI bloopers. I'm past the 45-minute mark on this recording, so I'm going to go ahead, save this and upload it, and then we'll go on to recording number 7, where we will take a look at some of the Android and iOS user interface guidelines. Thank you.